but he compiled a report and sent it to the American government.
2 Belgian army officers saw from the deck of their steamer a native canoe some distance away. The officers made a wager of £5 that they could hit the native with their rifles. 3 shots were fired. The native fell dead, pierced through the head, and the trade canoe was transformed into a funeral barge and floated down the river.
Williams died in England on his way back to America, but his report survived. It was the first published criticism of the King's new state.
Williams écrit au secrétaire d'État américain et décrit de manière parfaite les conditions de vie des Africains au Congo et utilise l'expression « Léopold II est responsable de beaucoup de crimes contre l'humanité ».
But despite Leopold's armed soldiers and his labor camp methods, the Congo was not paying its way, and it was crippling Leopold's finances. As the months went by, the king was getting increasingly desperate. What saved Leopold was the demand for cars and bicycles. When John Dunlop, an obscure Scottish vet, invented the first pneumatic tire, suddenly there was a huge market for rubber, and the Congo had rubber.
Een mirakeloplossing is uit de lucht gevallen als in 1893 men begonnen is met de rubberoogst. Ik kon dat niet voorspellen dat er daar rubber was en in zo grote mate, en dat die rubber ook enorme prijzen ging halen op de wereldmarkt. Dat kon hij niet voorspellen.
In the years to come, there would be competition from rubber plantations in Asia and South America, but for now, the king had the market all to himself. The more rubber he could get to Europe before the new plantations came on stream, the greater the killing.
Leopold combined the mind of a businessman and entrepreneur on one side and the mind of a political megalomaniac on the other side, and the two are very much linked together. Certainly, in that time, the second half of the 19th century, there's a clear link between economic power and political power. If you wanted to mean something, you had to have a lot of money, and that was what he intended to do with the Congo.
For Leopold, transforming his new assets into cash simply meant ratcheting up the level of force. Villages in the rubber areas were set heavy targets and punished violently for refusal or failure to deliver. The reign of terror had begun.
« 10 avril 1895. 6 indigènes tués. Village livré aux flammes. Déjeuner puis retour. 17 avril 1895. Parti avec 80 hommes pour Baouro. Une quinzaine de personnes tuées. 25 avril. Arrivée à Iteke. Brûler le village ainsi que Yambi. Ilongo. Brûler le village et tuer un indigène. Arrivé à Bakolo à 16 h. Brûlé. Arrivé à Yabumba à 11h40. Je fais brûler le village. Arrivé à Likombe à 3 h. Tout à coup, nous sommes attaqués. 2 soldats sont tués à côté de moi. Après quelques instants d'une fusillade bien nourrie, les indigènes prennent la fuite en laissant 13 des leurs sur le terrain. Je fais mettre le feu aux cases. « 8 juin. Je me dirige ensuite sur Yamapete. Je fais incendier le village. Après un bon déjeuner, nous rentrons en triomphe à Bazoko. avec nos sanglants trophées. 10 juin, nous trouvons Yambisi. Nous envoyons plusieurs groupes de soldats battre la plaine. Ils reviennent quelques heures après avec 11 têtes et 9 prisonniers. Le 22 juin, on nous amène 3 prisonniers dans la matinée. 3 autres vers le soir et 3 têtes sont apportées. Un homme de Bomané, parcourant la forêt en appelant un grand cri sa femme et son enfant égarés, reçoit une balle d'une de nos sentinelles. On nous apporte sa tête. Jamais j'ai vu une telle expression de désespoir, d'effarement. Nous faisons incendier Yambisi.
Ik denk dat inderdaad Leopold II morele verantwoordelijkheid draagt voor wat binnen het systeem waar hij achter stond en dat hij heeft georganiseerd, ja, dat hij daar de morele verantwoordelijkheid voor draagt, natuurlijk, dat is duidelijk.
As the death toll rose in the Congo, Leopold was busy consolidating his reputation as a philanthropist and humanitarian. The king was facing opposition from what were known at that time as Arab slavers, who still controlled a large part of his Congo. Defeating the Arabs was heralded as freeing the Congo from slavery, but in reality Leopold was getting rid of his competitors. The Royal Army Museum in Brussels represents the Arab campaign as a proud moment in Belgian history. Leopold built this museum too. Leopold also made sure that Belgian deaths in the campaign were not wasted. Combat fatalities were recreated as patriotic martyrs. Congolese deaths in the king's race for rubber were completely ignored.
King Leopold certainly did not deliberately go into sort of murder or whatever. King Leopold was part of a regime and part of an economic sort of system that basically considered that part of the work as his private property and that he could rule as he wished. And King Leopold also, he was a man of vision. You can strongly disagree with his vision, but he did have a vision. And Congo, of course, whether you want it or not, but has meant a lot to the Belgian economy. So for Belgium, there has been huge benefits to the involvement in Central Africa.
In Leopold's time, the main witnesses to the atrocities were the missionaries. Living in the rubber districts meant it was impossible for them not to see what was going on.
On December the 23rd, 1893, the state sent down some canoes under cover of night to the town of Ikengo. The people were quietly sleeping in their beds when they heard a shot fired and ran out to see what was the matter. Finding the soldiers had surrounded the town, their only thought was to escape. As they ran out of their homes, men, women and children, they were ruthlessly shot down. Their town was utterly destroyed and is a ruin unto this day. The only reason for this fight was that the people had failed to bring in food to the state upon that one day.
At first, the missionaries wrote privately to each other about the cruelties they had seen traveling around their areas. But after a while, they started writing to their home missions.
The poor people are crying out against the cruel oppression of the state, and well they might. I can scarcely keep my tongue silent when I hear of and see such villainy. We are 700 miles from the coast, and the officers act as though they had a free hand and could do as they please. Their conduct is bringing disgrace on the name of civilization.
The first mission station in Leopold's Congo was at Bolengi on the equator, where Stanley had established his first post, and it was not Belgian. British and American Protestant missionaries were making the running in the race for Congolese souls, and they were less likely to keep quiet. In 1895, a missionary on leave in London did go public, but was forced to remain anonymous. He feared for his safety when he went back. By now, the missionaries knew all too well the severity of the punishments the state handed out. They saw how villagers were flogged with the shikot, a whip made of rhinoceros hide dried in the sun till it could rip a man's skin to shreds. They saw men tortured to death with burning copal. A missionary described how the soldier found horrible pleasure in pouring the copal over a prisoner's head.
La potence est dressée. La corde est attachée trop haut. On soulève le moricaud et on lui passe le nœud coulant. La corde tourne pendant quelques instants, puis craque. L'individu est à terre qui gigote. Un coup de feu dans la nuque et le tour est joué. Pas la moindre impression cette fois. Et dire que la première fois que j'ai vu administrer de la chicote, j'en ai pâli d'effroi. L'Afrique a du bon tout de même. J'irai au feu maintenant comme à une noce.
Soon, one of the missionaries at Bolengi reached the point where he had to go public. What he had come across went beyond anything he had ever imagined. His reports first appeared in a missionary magazine, but soon found their way into national newspapers in Europe. The Reverend Sjöblom was the man who first revealed to the world the state practice of cutting off hands.
When I crossed the stream, I saw some dead bodies hanging down from the branches in the water. As I turned my face away at the horrible sight, one of the native corporals who was following us down said, "Oh, that's nothing." A few days ago I returned from a fight and I brought the white man 160 hands, and they were thrown into the river. That was about the time that I saw a native killed with my own eyes. The soldier said, "Don't take it to heart so much. They'd kill us if we don't bring the rubber." The Commissioner has promised us that if we have plenty of hands, he will shorten our service. I have brought in plenty of hands already, and I expect my service will soon be finished.
Leopold's soldiers were being ordered to cut off the right hands of dead bodies. Each soldier was issued a fixed number of cartridges before a raid, and to prove to the white officers that he hadn't wasted any, the soldier had to bring back a cut hand for each cartridge that he'd fired.
Maboko ana kukata awa huyo bakata kliboso kukata maboko awa.
Bongo bitumba oyo ba mindele ba memaki na bino bobundaki na bango to
obuna mindele zo makasi wapi makasi utie pale.
mindele akautu bazaki penza batu mabe
mabe luta tukuluta mabe kokoto na zamba bokoti na zamba te bokubika wapi yari kama munene.
Bongo wana bazosenga bomemelaka bango kautu tangu nyonso
kausuto mono kimpasi mpenza.
In each army unit, soldiers were designated to smoke the cut hands to preserve them. The hands were then taken to the officers to show that all the ammunition had been well used.
Basoda bamemi na bakangami misusu na bikoro. Bamemi na bwato. Na bwato wana namoni ekolo moko. Ekolo wana etonda kiti na katikati na maboko bakata. ntango tokomaki na Pikoro.